Hello there, you're back with Dave and Tim for the single malt review. Now, it's a bit of a secret, but we don't just enjoy whiskey and occasionally bourbon, rum and other boutique spirits here at Single Malt Review. We also enjoy a good craft beer. Could I say we're a bit spoiled on that front. We're from New Zealand, of course, and I'm going to say, just got a bit of a limb, that New Zealand makes some of the very best beer in the world. But sometimes we try stuff from a little further afield.
Yes, we do. Call this episode maybe a bit of an intermission for the Single Malt Review here, because when we've reviewed gins, we've reviewed vodkas, never have we fallen so far from the channel guidelines as to review a can of beer. But like I say, consider this the intermission. This is just a wee bit of bonus content.
We have both reviewed beer before in the past, in video and in text form,
yes, we have.
elsewhere on the internet. But
so not to call us professionals, but we do know our beers from our beers. But no, I thought we'd leave the camera on for this one, because otherwise we'd just be sitting here drinking this anyway. So the only difference is we're not eating chips loudly into the microphone. Really, our sacrifice to you. So this is 10 Fidy. A hauntingly New Zealand sounding name for a beer, but I won't get into that. From the Oskar Blues brewery in Colorado.
yes,
One of the great many craft breweries in Colorado and the US all over, really. As much as New Zealand makes a lot of craft beer, and as Dave says, it's very, very good. It's really only a scene that's... And this is an outside bet that's 15 years or so old. America has been doing it a lot longer, and the New Zealand scene is very much following on from the American one. We're still drinking bloody barrel-aged sours because of you people.
I like barrel-aged sour beers. I'm not going to lie, I like them. It's experimental, it's bold, it's confronting.
I myself, I'm still waiting for that trend to end. But until you stop enthusing about them in America, we will never be released from that sour beer prison. So, help.
Before that happened, though, I was a big fan of dark beers, stouts, porters, and especially imperial stouts or porters. And, well, who do you know, but it's an imperial stout.
It is, imperial stout, and 10.5%, as the 10 Fidy suggests on the label. Very little, let's say, usable information on the can. There's a lot of
fluff and hyperbole, as you
on
tend
the
to get
can,
on beer cans.
which I don't need to repeat, but not a lot of usable info. I'm sure the website would be more, but we're not going to go too serious about that. We thought we'd just dive in. It sure as hell looks like an imperial stout. You don't really discern their colour so much from the beer as you do from the foam.
A lot of dark roasted malt has obviously gone into this. Almost pitch black beer with a very latte looking head on it. And the imperial obviously denoting a very high strength beer, dating back to the old days when Britain would export a lot of beer to the Russian Empire, often at a much higher strength for various reasons. Hence, imperial denoting usually something 8% and above. In this case, 10.5, which is hearty, not record-breaking as far as beer goes, but still, you're going to feel it. And yeah, Colorado, along with California and Oregon, some of my favourite beer-producing regions in North America. As I say, I do rate New Zealand craft beer way up there, but America does some amazing and unique things too.
They certainly do. So, this one smells pretty typical. The only question I have about this is has it been wood aged or not? Because the can doesn't.
Normally,
doesn't
if it had
suggest.
been, that is enough of a USP. They're going to mention it on the label.
Probably.
Most likely hasn't happened in this case, but
And as you say, I don't smell anything too overt
coffee,
on the nose.
cocoa, hot chocolate. That's a good imperial stout aroma. So I'm liking that already.
And there's just a little salty tang as well, which I find is essential. Otherwise, these things can get so sweet and soupy that they can become very, very hard work. You need that little bit of saltiness.
That comparatively dark mocha-looking head on this is a good sign. Often it's a sign of a much, much darker beer. You can have an almost pure white head on a stout, and it'll be a sign it's going to be a thinner body.
Oh, actually, that's
that's heavy.
That's really nice. It's weighty, but I said I could smell a little bit of the sort of brine on that one. That's really, really pleasingly savoury. That is almost a salty beer. That one you don't get Marmite in the States, but God, what would you even call it? You might get Vegemite. It's not the same thing, but it's similar. A yeast spread. Not that it really resembles or tastes like yeast. It's a sort of a black substance that you put on toast and whatnot. But heavily salty umami flavour is what you get. And this is no small quantity in here.
That's a good toasty, chocolatey maltiness.
It is sweet, but it is significantly and necessarily tempered by that salty nuance to it, such that it's quite dry.
Perhaps slightly sweeter than I was expecting. I'm used to my very dark beers being a bit dry in this, but it could be, though, because we've been reviewing variously rum, bourbon, and whiskey the rest of this afternoon. So this is,
I think it's
quite light.
I think it's sweet in that it just doesn't have a lot of. There's not a huge bitterness there.
Yeah.
There's not a huge sweetness, but nor is there a hugely hoppy bitterness or anything like that. So it's really quite nice and balanced.
Yeah, perhaps more accustomed to my Imperial dark beers being quite a bit more dry and savoury and rougher on the tongue.
Wow, that's really good, and that's quite different coming from American brewery as well. We do get American beer over here, but it is almost exclusively in the IPA territory, which is doubly fraught. One, that's what 90% of our beers are trying to copy anyway. Albeit with New Zealand hops, which have their own very, very distinct flavour, whereas American hops, or, Washington hops, at any rate... Oh, dear. That's gone entirely the wrong way. Never mind. They have a very fresh, piney, almost minty quality to them. New Zealand hops have a very, very tropical passion fruit thing. Same thing happens with our wine. There's just something in the soil... in the near the regions where these hops are grown, where you just get a different and completely different flavour profile.
Love lush, juicy fruitiness to New Zealand fruits, whether it's hops or grapes.
So our IPAs tend to follow into a sort of a sweeter, more lush style than American ones, which is a real problem when you try to make very, very strong ones. Oh dear. Yeah, it's going to be a problem. Because... when you're dealing with a very, very strong IPA like a double or even a triple on the rare occasion that comes around, you are going to be having to deal with a huge quantity of malt, which means usually a huge quantity of sweetness that you have to mitigate with those hop flavours. And if those hops are themselves lending sweet things, our beers can start tasting like tinned fruit salad after a certain point. Very, very sweet, very, very tropical. American beer doesn't have that problem so much. But this is another thing entirely. This is a bit more like a New Zealand beer. New Zealand makes lovely, lovely dark beers, even though they're not that publicised. Because those aren't quite so reliant on particular hop characters. They're more malt driven. And for as much hops as we grow down here, and it is not an insignificant quantity, we grow even more malt. Huge tracts of arable farmland in New Zealand. It's probably a farm country if you were to describe it. And all the malt we use for beer is grown here and more. We export quite a lot of it. And so
we
these
export
malty
hops.
beers. We do.
The likes of Nelson Sauvin, a uniquely New Zealand hop varietal that's been exported around the world into traditional beer growing regions of Scandinavia and elsewhere for unique single hop beers.
This, however, I think is completely individually quite phenomenal. I wasn't expecting anything nearly this thoughtful. I've had quite a few Imperial Stouts, and this really, really rates. I won't go and be silly and give it scores or anything like that, because that's once we're in beer scores, then we've lost our minds at this point, and the whole thing will go up in flames. But I can say that if you can get a can of 10 Fidy, you might as well. My partner bought this one, so I don't know what it costs, but probably way less if you're in the States. I can say that with some authority. Easy recommendation. 10 Fidy Imperial Stout.
Yeah. I've never had an Oskar Blues beer before. In fact, before today, I've never heard of him as a brewer. But, no, I'm enjoying it a lot. It's not as weighty, as heavy, or as savoury as some of the Imperial Stouts I enjoy more, but it's got a degree of sweetness and hoppiness, which you don't often get, well, at least you don't get as often in the style. So it's an easy recommendation for me too. We're moving into the winter months here in New Zealand. It's getting colder, and there is no better time of year for a heavy, dark, strong, warming beer. So, hell, go for it.
All right. one thing you can do at home, here's your homework. Let us know if there's an unmissable American beer that we should try, that we're in any way likely to be able to find in New Zealand.
Yes.
Don't tell me about anything you can have to line up at the brewery and sleep overnight or whatever to get a bottle of. We're not going to be able to get that. But if there is something really unmissable, let us know. And the next time we have a single malt review intermission after the end of a long afternoon of the terribly, terribly hard work that we do, we might check it out
Yes.
then.
I love an Almanac Sour, California's preeminent brewer of sour barrel-aged beers.
Don't suggest
I love it.
Beer. No,
Yeah.
spare me that one. Or we'll have to do two, and then it'll turn into a whole thing, as they say, thing. Anyway, we won't go too long on this one because there's probably like 1.5 people watching at this stage, so nothing to lose really. But do keep safe as always. Slanger, whatever they say for beer. Cheers, Prost, whatever.
Yeah, we'll see you next time.
We will.